Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Hey, guys. Today, first off, let me know how the audio is. I just have the browser up here, but I've been having some audio issues with ESO up and tabbed out of it, and I will be tabbed out of it quite a bit today. But today, yeah, I want to talk about. So hopefully, this is a feel good stream. That's what I'm going for. That's the vibe we're going for. Those couple of things in the might have sounded spicy in the thumbnail. I just realized that like everything can be interpreted differently. If you ever see one of my thumbnails and it looks spicy, I'm usually not going for that. And if it looks drama, focused, I'm never going for that. So I do want to talk though about fanboys. I want to talk about being wrong, and I also want to talk about DK healers. They're three totally different thoughts. So on Mondays and kind of Fridays, we've been doing more conversational streams like this where we chat a bit and talk about different things. I've been doing a lot of kind of, hey, let's make a X build, X race and Y class and uh, or spec or whatever, and like let's just make it. And I think that's been really helpful for a lot of people. Hey, where Moogle, what's going on? And I wanted to. I thought about actually since Where Moogle's here, I thought about talking about where Moogle's been working on a non-resto staff, just kind of a fun build, and I was like, it's been pretty interesting for me to see, and I think for him to do, and so that's on the list. I actually mentioned it to him earlier today. Was like, hey, let's get can we get a time for this so we can or I can go over it. I don't think we'll be able to necessarily talk about it, and but today. Yeah, I want to talk about those things that I mentioned, I suppose. Uh, okay, just responded in your DMs. All right, cool. All right, maybe I'll pull that up even because then I might be able to announce something. Um, Oh, it's a lot. Okay, well, not that much. Okay, it might be a little bit. We're gonna get there soon, though. I was trying to figure out a time for us that would work. We'll get there soon. Also, where Moogle and to all the other channel members, want to say thank you guys for supporting the channel. We've gotten quite a few that have joined recently, and I really appreciate guys. It starts for $1 a month, goes up from there if depending on what you're interested in, how much enjoyment and entertainment I guess you get out of my content a month. Appreciate all of you guys for joining, and Where Moogle's also helped out on the Kofi as well, which I need to get integrated with pop-ups and everything. Where Moogle was very kind and kind of pointed that out to me. Uh, And Lyria says, this is a new image for the starter page. Yeah, it is. First time I've seen it, at least. It looks really good, right? It's not even like, it's just when it logs you out. When you log in, you still see the same pages. But this looks great, doesn't it? Sorry, I can only use phone and breaks. Hey, no worries, man. No worries. No problem. Well, yeah. So let's start off. I mean, with the first thing, I want to talk about fanboys. I want to talk about a little bit about being wrong. So this has happened to me before. It actually was a number of years ago, the first time it happened, and I had someone who was a friend of the channel, found my channel, also ran in the guild and everything else, and maybe I shouldn't get too specific, but it's happened before. It's actually happened several times where folks will be really into what I'm doing, and I mean, I love that, right? Like, I need that. The thing, though, is where it came up to be maybe a problem is because there was a little bit of this idea that, like, I couldn't do anything wrong or I couldn't be wrong or what have you. And I just want to say to all of my friends, all of my fans and everything else that I can be wrong. I think most of you know that, but it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not always get everything right. And just because one person is wrong about one thing, I mean, we see this all the time. Well, maybe I see it more than most. I have a bunch of friends because my wife is very smart. She has a doctorate degree in chemical engineering, and she has a lot of friends, and I watch a lot of researchers and stuff like that. I see a lot of things, right, with regards to people that are incredibly educated, and sometimes. So I would say generally those people are very smart and they do a better job of parsing through data than I do because I don't. That's what they do. That's what they spent years of their life dedicated to, and so they do that better than I can. I will still say that, and we have I could point to many instances of where you can think that you're right about something and that your expertise applies to other fields. So, for example, so I studied physics and applied math, and there was a physics professor who, I don't know why it came up or what was the deal, but they were talking for some reason. Sometimes they would talk about just other things, and it was in regards to exercising and losing weight. And it was very much just a simple, like, well, it's just, calories in, calories out, right? Basic laws of thermodynamics cannot change. It has to be true. Don't worry, guys. I'm relating this back to ESO. Just walk with me here for a second. Um, so it was related to, yeah, and that was his thought, right? And it was, and I honestly saw this studying physics. I saw this a lot with people who studied physics. You have a lot of pretty intense nerds, but you also have nerds that maybe didn't grow up feeling that great about themselves, and then they learn things, and they kind of, their way of feeling good about themselves was being a bit superior to other people and feeling like, I know things you don't. There's even the Fermilab has a YouTube channel, and I love the Fermilab, and I like what their YouTube channel does. But even one of their things could be like, they say it in a nice way, and I forget the gentleman who runs their YouTube. Actually, you know what? I brought up YouTube just so that we could talk about this. Why don't I pull it up? Let me see. Somewhere in here, I've got some. Oh, hold on. I got some exercise science guys up first, but let me. How do I do this? How do I pull up the same page? Maybe I can go back. We're going to talk about these guys in a second. What was I looking at? Okay. Fermilab. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Let me pull these guys up. I don't remember who this gentleman is. Yeah, he's someone with a doctorate degree. Fermilab is a national lab here in the U.S. I think it's near Chicago or in Illinois, I believe. And they do a lot of fundamental research on, I guess I can pull this up. They do a lot of fundamental research on science, right? And one of the things they'll say at the end of his videos, remember, like, physics is everything. And he says it in a very, like, fun way. And it's like, yeah, physics is everything. A lot of physicists will take that quite literally, and they'll think, since they know about physics, that they know about everything. And so again, they'll talk about that relationship of, if calories in, calories out, right? And it has to be, that's it. That's all there is to it. However, folks like folks like Dr. Menno Henselman here, who has studied exercise science and has a doctorate degree in this sort of thing, and I believe it's him, but there have been studies that have been done on basically, well, generally, like, subsistence type farmers in modern day, and folks that live the same way that our ancestors lived. That's still, they're less developed, right? So the developing world, places where, and what they've actually found is that it's not just calories in, calories out. They've actually found that your body, when you're in a situation, a survival situation, or just a normal situation, you can become more efficient. You can do the same activity and all of a sudden it be more efficient and you burn less calories. Okay. So yes, to some degree, the laws of thermodynamics do need to hold. But if you're actually looking for, like, weight loss advice, which was where this conversation started, and again, a whole bunch of nerds, right? It's not simply calories in and calories out. It is more complicated than that. Now, is it as complicated as the latest pop science, oh, you got to just eat potatoes, or, like, don't eat vegetables, or only eat vegetables, or whatever it happens to be? No, a lot of that stuff is just garbage. It's not science-based. Even though people that have, like, they've kind of sold out with PhDs or whatever, typically not, but a few of them will have. It's funny too, because sometimes it'll be like, oh, I have a PhD, and they're talking about, and you're like, oh, your PhD's in, like, psychology, not at all related to the field you're talking about. But it just goes to prove that it's not as simple and clear cut as you might think. Why do I bring that up? Why do I bring that up? Well, let me catch up on chat a little bit here. Where Moogle says, me and the wife argue the existence of Bigfoot on a weekly basis. Okay. Mel says this is a different type of stream. Yeah, Mel, I should, now that a bunch of people have dropped in, I should take a step back and talk about this a little bit. I'll pop back. Clicked for ESO, stayed for the physics class, Terrell says. No, the wife and I, Chicken says. Yes, an excellent correction, where Moogle points out. Thanks, Chicken. Cool. So I want to talk about, like I said, I want to talk about a little bit, fanboys. I want to just strongly encourage people not to be fanboys of me or of anybody else. what you really want to do. So, and yeah, here we'll talk about it more. I'm picking things that are completely unrelated, if I can, to ESO, so that hopefully my goal is that no one will be defensive about them, that no one will get their hackles up and think that like, oh, I'm ready to disagree with Night Haro here, and then we will come back to ESO once we've kind of talked about this a little bit. So that's why this is a little bit of a different stream, Mel. Hopefully, I'll do a good job. You guys let me know if I don't by giving me a downvote or an upvote if I do. Okay, now I'm going to talk about one more thing not related to ESO after I grab a drink of water. Too bad when it's hot out, I need a fanboy, where Miggle says. Yeah. And like sometimes you do want are you ever like upset or just having a bad day and you go to tell your friend something and you just want them to be on your side? I think typically I find women are better at this than men, I think, but you just want someone to be like, yeah, that person's wrong. You're right. There are times, right? And there are times when, like, you're like, hey, I'm asking for feedback. Just realize I can accept zero criticism right now. I just need to tell you to tell me it's great. And your friend's like, yeah, it looks good. Sometimes you need that, okay? You just don't want to live your life based on that, okay? That's what you don't want. It will lead to bad things for you. And if we all do it, it leads to bad things for society. Okay. Another thing came up. Actually, this was just me. So I'm into exercising. I think I've kind of mentioned that recently, and I had the overuse injury with my elbows kept me from really being able to lift weights, which is my preferred type of exercise. Well, in addition to like a lot of endurance type sports, like I love hiking, I like mountain biking, and I'm really lucky that I grew up with those things. In exercise being a big part of my life. It's really hard if that wasn't for you, and I know for a lot of us gamers it wasn't, but I was pretty lucky in that regard. One of the guys that I really like, these are two guys that I really like. This one is Jeff Nippard. So he's a natural pro body. Here, we'll just read his. He's Canadian natural pro bodybuilder. Looks like he's also does some powerlifting. He's going to school. He has a bachelor's in science in biochemistry and chemistry, and just a passion for science. He is part of what you would consider what is often called the science-based lifters here, and I mean, you can see he's pretty big, right? So someone who's natural, doesn't take any, not chemically enhanced in any way, and he does a bunch of videos. He does some really great videos. I really like a lot of his videos, and I mean, what has he got? 6.7 million subscribers, right? Almost 7 million subscribers here, and so I really like him, respect him, and there's also some other ones. There's this one here is Menno Henselman, and what does he have to say? What's his? So he's exercise scientist. He's an author. He sells some online classes that I think are really good for like physical training and stuff like that. And he also does like fundamental research as well. Or actually, I say fundamental research. I think a lot of his research has been comparative analysis of various other like science-based stuff. He's a science person, okay? So there was a situation. I'm getting like so off in the weeds. I'm probably losing people already. Let me just check. Yep. Okay, I am losing people. Perfect. All right. So the other day I saw something with Jeff Nippard where he was talking about a particular exercise, and so a different YouTuber who's not that science-based but just does entertaining stuff around fitness was on his channel, and they were talking about doing military presses, and the guy asked him, oh yeah, I've heard that if you do it like behind your neck that you'll work more of the side of your delts, right, and less of the front. And Jeff was like, no, that's not true. And the dude was like, oh. And I heard that and I was like, wait, I thought that was true as well. And so I was like, well, that sucks because I have really overdeveloped front delts. Most people do, and I really want the side, and even more so the back, to be more developed, so it's a little bit more symmetrical. Doing too many push-ups in the military is what got that to happen. And also kind of working out for football and stuff in the US here, American football. And then I was like, man, that's weird. So I checked with Dr. Henselman here, and he actually said the exact opposite, that there is research, and he referenced the research and said, hey, if you do work out, like they've strap people with electrical sensors to see how activated the muscle is. And if you're working out pretty far behind your head, got your elbows really far back, that you'll do more of your side delts. Okay. Now, these are both two people that I really like, and they said two different things. Okay. Now, if I was a fanboy of Jeff Nippert here, what I would say is like, oh no, this other guy. So, well, Jeff looks a lot more like me, right? He's a white guy. And he's Canadian, but he's a white guy. This other guy, where is he from? Well, if you hear his accent, you know he's not from the U.S. probably. So, I could be like, well, I'm going to go with my guy because he looks like me, right? People literally do this, okay? This is what we don't want to do. You might also go, well, it seems like Jeff has a bachelor's in science. I don't know why Menno doesn't have other things. I need to confirm now that he has a doctorate degree, because it should be listed here. But look at this other person. Well, he's referencing a scientific paper. Okay, well, can I find a link to that paper? Okay, can I go look at that paper? Okay, now you might not be able to do all of that, but the TLDR is that I think Menno Henselman here is correct and Jeff is wrong. Does that mean that Jeff, anything that he said is wrong, and that all of his videos and all of his thoughts on the subject, etc., are wrong? No, it doesn't, right? He might have just got this wrong. There could have been research at one point that pointed to one thing. He could have misunderstood the question. There could be 1,000 reasons. And again, he could just simply be wrong. He could be under the false impression. Just like that professor, the physics professor, who has been a physics professor for, I don't know, decades. He was pretty old. Equated exercising to calories in, calories out. There's nothing else to it, which is just wrong. And if you simplify it and tell somebody that who's really trying to lose weight, I think you're doing a disservice to them. Okay. And so that's why that one caught my attention and why I've remembered it all these years. So, got some funny comments. So how does that relate to ESO? All right. A bit earlier today. No, not earlier today. Actually, no, some of them were today. I've gotten comments before. Okay. I've gotten comments on my video, and I had one of them, people will do this, like disagreeing with this person. Wow, that's wild, right? Because they have all this X or Y, right? This person has put out a bunch of great content on whatever it happens to be. I'll mention one. I'll only mention people that one of the guys that I like is TC Lee over the Tank Club. TC Lee always seems to me like he is trying to help people. He wants people to enjoy games, to have fun, and what have you. I have mentioned recently that some of what he said in his, I think, most recent tanking video, I found to be not the best advice. And not everything, but just some stuff. And I was like, oh, I know he's not really playing ESO anymore. I think he said that. And I found the advice to be less than great. Now, somebody else that I have had negative experiences around, not necessarily with them, but just around them, and maybe a little bit some not great conversations with them. And, I have found this other person to actually be more accurate. And I tend to agree with them more on what they have to say. Both things can be true. Okay. You can say hey, I really like this person. I totally disagree with them. On the channel over the weekend, we chatted with a couple of people. Well, we only chatted with one person, but Lenny Linguini, aka Miles, was on the channel, and we talked about raid group optimization and stuff like that, and a little bit with dungeons. I want to talk a lot more about that. We're going to be doing a lot more of that in the future. I think everybody's on board, both the people that would jump in, and Spark Rip and a few other people. Spark Rip has done just a ton of stuff for all of us in the community. He's done a lot of spreadsheets, done a lot of investigating and what have you, and found out that some stuff that not even Zoss knew how it was working, much less any of us in the community. And it doesn't matter how sweaty you are, you found out stuff that literally nobody else knew. Okay, and that happens from time to time. A lot of sometimes there's stuff that it's kind of obvious, we all figure it out together kind of independently because it's a little bit more obvious. What Spark was doing was incredibly in-depth, incredibly fact-finding. And also, I should note that Spark also referenced and credited a bunch of other people in helping him figure all that stuff out. It wasn't just him, and he would be one of the first people to tell you that, okay? So, I might disagree And they might disagree with me on various things. Spark might do it, Lenny might do it. It doesn't matter who it is. We might disagree. One of us might be right. One of us I mean, one of us is probably right. One of us is probably wrong. That's okay. Well, we can still be friends. Spark still drops in on the channel, right? And we can still, and I just, when you go through life, so part of this was meant to be a feel good stream, right? As Mel pointed out, this is a different type of stream. I'm trying to go for that a little bit. I want to kind of do some things like this, not a whole lot, but just a little. And every once in a while, I'm thinking now that we might do every once in a while one that has nothing to relate it to ESO, but how you can relate this to why this is so important. If you go through life and you decide that, hey, you know what, this guy looks like me, he's from closer to where I'm from, I am just going to listen to this guy, and anybody who says anything different is wrong and bad. That happens all the time. I get comments whenever I say something that is not what somebody else recommends. I'm sure they get those comments. I know that has happened to me with folks that were really big fans of Zynode. And, part of it is when I'm thinking of one particular instance where this was someone who probably was unwell. Okay. And they were a Zynode super fan, and that's cool. That's totally fine. But I think they were honestly, mentally unwell. And do I blame Zynode for that? No. Do I have issues with and also like Zynode was really nice. He actually rated the channel a while back, and it's what got me on Twitch to where I could monetize on Twitch. I got enough people from that one stream where he rated me that I was able to monetize on Twitch, and I was trying to get that done. That was important to me. It was awesome. I disagree with some of the things that Zynode says, and more to the point, I don't like how Zynode phrases some of his things because I feel like they're inflammatory. Now, do I know if he is trying to be inflammatory? Not really. I kind of highly suspected on some of those things. Like I feel like he's doing a little like soft trolling, as I call it. I do the same thing. So glass house, I don't know how many stones I should be throwing. But all of these things can be true. Okay. I genuinely think that that Zynode is trying to help people. Do I think that all of his advice is helping everyone? Maybe not. Maybe I disagree with some of it, right? And the same with other people, right? That's okay. And again, we're talking about my friends, people that I really like. I just want to say that we just don't attach. It's like attaching your personal view of yourself to like a sports team or a political group or something else. Just don't do it, guys. The best thing that you can do for yourself, for your own well-being, and for the world at large is to it's really hard. It's really hard work. You don't have to do it all the time. I get it. But you just got to think for yourself. And you just got to go, hey, is that thing true? And if you think something's true, the best way to figure out if it's true is not to go look for a bunch of evidence that shows that you're right. Okay. Don't do that. Sure, find some evidence that, you want to have some reasons, but go look for evidence that shows that you're wrong. And for example, these two guys, right? When I looked and saw, so what did I have from Jeff? Well, Jeff, I had an offhanded comment about a live recording, essentially. I mean, they could have done multiple takes on some stuff, but it was very much off the cuff. And so that's what I had from Jeff. And then I had Menno Henselman here, who was going in detail and talking about the research and what it showed and why we think this thing is true. Okay. You got to peace out. Okay. All right, man. We'll catch you in a little bit. Where Moogle. Have fun with the wholesome Haro stream. Okay, good, man. Hopefully we're continuing. Let me catch up on comments here. Yeah, Chicken says you mean that thing called playing outside. Indeed, Chicken. I lost weight the other day when I looked in the mirror and found it, sadly. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Robert Miller said, especially when it comes to weight loss, there's a metric ton of bad info out there. Yeah, there absolutely is. There's a metric ton, for sure. I've actually thought about covering this, and I probably will at some point, not because I'm suddenly going to become a fitness streamer or whatever, but just because so many of us who are nerds have problems with being overweight, just like I have. I am still, like, part of it is like my just height to weight ratio, but I've been I'm in the obese category, or have been. Okay, I still am, but I've lost a lot of body fat, so it's less of a bad thing, I guess. It still might not be great, but it's less of a bad thing. But I've totally been there with really high body fat percentages, and it's not healthy. And I want to talk about it because I know it matters, and I feel like I can give some good, very condensed advice to people that will help them on their way, because there's so much bad advice out there. So anyways, though, that's not what we're doing today. Um, so, the thought is, though, that I could, you have to pick, you have to think for yourself, you have to look for stuff, and you have to go, oh, I was wrong. This also happened the other day. Again, happen to be talking about exercising stuff. UZHP hopped in from Twitch, and we're talking about having protein, eating enough protein, and creatine. And he was like, I'd like, his understanding was that some of this stuff could be bad for your liver, bad for your kidneys, and what have you. I've also heard that historically, and my understanding was that that has changed. So, but he was challenging me. I was like, I don't think that's true. And then afterwards, what I did, because it's important to me, because I take a bunch of protein every day, I was like, I should go make sure that that's fine. And so I went and I looked up, and I found, I didn't find original research. I'll be honest. That's like not the first step. I went to people on YouTube, because that's a lot easier, that have doctorate degrees and who study this stuff and who are science based. And one of the things you'll find with scientists in general, but these handful of guys. The other one here is Mike Israetel. Mike Israetel is his name. I'll pull him up. I don't know how to spell Israetel. There you go. Mike, RP Fitness is his channel. Oh no. He says a lot of off-colored things that are very inappropriate or sexual in nature. Just to warn you guys, I'm not offended by that stuff. I don't love it, but he does. So I'm not. Jeff is great. Jeff is never gonna say anything I think it's gonna be offensive. I'll just say that. This guy here has covered a lot of stuff, and what you'll find when you're watching these guys that are science based, they'll realize they were wrong about things. Okay, and when they realize that they're wrong about things, what they do is that they change what they're thinking, and they go, oh yeah, I was wrong about that. And a big part about why you can do that is, one, don't die on a hill. Like, don't pick a hill to die on that, like, oh, I'm right about this. I mean, sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm really sure. If you're really sure about something, maybe, but don't die on every hill. And then when you get new data and you're like, yeah, I was really sure that this thing was right, and now I'm really sure that this thing is wrong. I have personally, part of it I think comes with age, maybe I'm showing that a little bit, is that, when you live long enough, you realize you used to be really wrong about some things that you were really sure about. And it could be related to your things that you believe. It could be related to things that you, like your religion. It could be related to politics. It could be related to the way you think the world works, whatever it happens to be. But the most important thing is just to be willing to be wrong. Be open to the idea. If you are curious what will happen and you don't think you know everything, you will continue to learn. And that's what, like, life will be better and things will go better for you if you do that. I know that's kind of crazy. All right. a little non sequitur here. So kind of putting a pause in this. I did want to ask you guys, I want to do more of not this kind of stream, but I want to do more of the kind of streams where I talk about classes, and maybe we do class builds and stuff like that. I am also looking for a lot of different ideas. So some of the things that have been suggested to me, and I'm looking for your suggestions. So please drop them in the comments here. Even if you're watching this after the fact, it's almost better after the fact, because those pop up differently on YouTube. But I'm curious, now that we have some people in the channel, that, what are your thoughts? A couple of things is like, how do I set up a character for a particular trial? Or how do I change up skills for a particular situation? Because that has come up, instead of like a standardized build or what have you. Like, what do I run on a particular fight, or in a dungeon, or with a new group, or something like that? If you have ideas for videos, or not videos, live streams that you would like to see where we talk about that stuff, I'm going to keep doing the build videos for sure. but things like that, I would please drop them in and let me know. Hey, Crafty Pappy, what's going on, man? Dave says, I subscribed to Muscle and Fitness magazine in my 20s, and it seemed like these articles contradict themselves every few months. Yeah, man, because they're just like putting out whatever, for sure. Robert says, I'll watch for sure. Your optimization chat the other night gave me a new goal, Zenkosh DK. Oh, that's awesome. Robert, I'm actually Zenkoshing DK later on tonight, and we might spend a little bit of the end of the stream here getting that set up because it's got to happen. I'm feeling for a hard mode Lucent Citadel. Okay. Let's talk about maybe some other stuff. Let's talk about stuff because I want to make sure that this is really clear to everybody and relate it back to ESO. Let me see, Nightheart Gaming, and we're going to go with Arcanist Healer. Okay, I want to point out some things that I am not happy with. This video was put out a month ago, and I am not happy with it. It's going to be weird if I pull it up. Hopefully I'm hiding myself. All right, cool. Mostly I am. Okay, looking at this build, here I have the Resto Staff skill, describing skill, which is a tether that you can put on somebody. Sometime after putting this out, so just to give you an idea, I don't like my own videos, okay? I have problems with everything I put out. This one, though, got to me a little bit for a number of reasons, and I just want to go through and talk about it here. So first off, powered. Hey guys, if you watch in the Dreadcell Reef hard mode that I'm healing, I don't run a powered Resto Staff. I recommend it here, but I'm not running one. I'm not on an Arcanist, but I'm on a Nightblade, and it would be the same. What do I run? I run Decisive because I can generate even more ultimate, because that's the big part of my job in that group, and I don't need more heals, okay? So that's someplace where I disagree with myself. And do I really disagree with myself? No. I'm just trying to simplify this for people in such a way that I think it's useful and that it'll be a good guide. If I go through and I say, hey guys, here's the 4 things you could put on a Resto Staff front bar. You could use powered for the extra healing. You could run double infused, and you could run instead like a weakening enchant or some other kind of enchant that is really important for your group that can help them out. Okay, depending on a weakening enchant, probably depending on what you had on your Destro Staff. You could do that. You could also run Decisive for the extra ulti gen, right? And there's probably a 4th option that I'm not thinking of off of the top of my head, okay? Here, again, the reason I recommended this, I forgot what it's called, the healing tether on your Resto Staff for the scribing skill, is because it'll generate Crux for you. And on an Arcanist healer, I think it's pretty important to generate and lose Crux if you can. At least generate, but ideally generate and then also lose it, because there's a lot of passives. And I went through them and I thought, hey, you know what? I think this is a cool skill that you cast, and it'll you can even let it drop off, but it's generally speaking going to be doing its job. And then you need some way to spinning Crux. Really, any scribing skill, you could be generating Crux here, and like you could also use the Mages Guild. And I just wasn't happy with how I communicated that to the audience. Another thing, if we look at some of my tanking videos, I always say reduced spell cost. Well, sometimes I run Harmony. Not very often, but there are situations where I run Harmony. Also, actually, to talk about healers, reduce spell cost on that hard mode Dreadcell Reef I'm healing, and I'm using that example because it's obviously some fairly difficult content. I don't just run reduce cost, and the reason for that is because it's too good. I need to be able to drop Magicka to be able to proc Pearls of El Nofe. And so to do that, it's too good to have 3 reduced, or even like 1 or 2. And so I actually run like tri-stat recoveries. And I figured like, I want less Magicka recovery, but I also could use some stamina recovery. And I ran the math and I figured out that, well, while I could use reduced cost tri-stat, I don't really cast the stamina costing skills often enough for it to be worth it. And really the recovery for stamina would be better. And that would also solve my mag problem. There's a lot of nuance there. I don't feel like I'm picking something that I'm like totally wrong about. Does anybody remember from any of my videos something where like, you were wrong about this, Nightheart? Can you drop it in chat? Anybody at all? Bueller. What else we got here? I want to catch up on these comments here. Nice. I was wondering how it would get updated. Okay. Chatted with a doctor today. said creatine is great, but not just for working out, but for focus. Yep. Recommended, especially as people age, keeps your mind sharp. Yeah. Yeah. And creatine, there's like this. I don't know if people were taking crazy amounts or if it was old data that it was bad for you. But you can Google if you check out some like, one of those three guys. I think Mike Israel did a video where he kind of explained this is what we used to think in the 70s and 80s. There was a study and we thought that this could be a thing. But like newer studies have shown that like that's just not the case with, I think specifically with protein, but I think there's also some stuff on creatine. Yeah. Cool. Let me see. Let me just pop over here. I should check a few things. Cool. Stream's looking okay. All right. So I think fanboys. I got a comment earlier today and over the weekend where someone was like, you disagreed with so and so, like, and it was clearly showing to me that this person really didn't care what I had to say. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, and that they were just kind of, I don't want to, kind of a shit post, right? So like shit posts are just like low effort, low value posts that are just like, you suck kind of thing, right? And I as a person I'm always on a mission to civilize, right? I always want to engage with people because I want to find that middle ground. I think it's really important. I think it's important in life to be able to find middle ground with people. And I responded like, hey, here's some, here's some data, here's some things. I'm not saying that this person is wrong, or actually, I might be saying this person is wrong, but I'm not saying this person, even if I disagree with them, even if I think they're wrong, that doesn't mean, it doesn't invalidate everything they've ever said. It doesn't mean that they're not still incredibly intelligent. It doesn't mean they're not incredibly, like, it doesn't really take anything from them, right? Like, it's just, we can all be wrong, like, right? Like, to be, to be human is to err, or to err is to be human, I suppose. That happens. What happens though, and unfortunately what happened is they just doubled and then tripled down on it and started hate watching my other videos and dropping comments. The algorithm doesn't care if you're hate watching or not, guys. They just see engagement and they're like, cool, that's good. But the thing is that whatever it is in our life, if it's our political beliefs, if it's our religion, if it's our scientific beliefs or whatever, if you hold on to things that tight and you stop listening and stopping, what happens is that someone can point out to you facts that are undisputable. Like they're facts, right? Like by definition, this thing is true and here's why, and you can see. I had another person, this is a while back, not that long ago, like a week or two ago, who on one of my videos, I recommend reduce spell cost. And they told me, they asked the question, I answered it. And then they responded and they said, well, like every other person that I look at online doesn't recommend reduced spell cost. They recommend recovery, Magicka recovery, which is interesting. I'm like, I want to know who they're seeing that recommends recoveries. And they'll like basically ask me about it. And I explained it to them and I ran through the numbers and they are like, I don't know where you're getting this information from. I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but like everybody else says that to do increased spell, Magicka recovery. You're wrong, basically bye. Like I'm checking out of this conversation. They were honestly fairly polite about it. Well, the place that I was getting the numbers that I was using from was literally in game. I wasn't even calculating them. I was literally putting on reduced cost, right? I don't need to. We already know what it doesn't, nothing really changes reduced cost. But if you put on increased Magicka recovery glyphs and then you go hit the dummy, and then you make sure that you have all your minor recoveries, your major recoveries by drinking a potion, making sure you got your buffs up. There might be a few things I'm missing, but not much. It's not going to be anything that's really going to move the needle. And that's literally where I was getting, so minor intellect, right? Major intellect, minor endurance, major endurance. And that's literally where I was getting the numbers from. And I just, hey dude, here's where, but that person had checked out. They didn't respond anymore. And they just didn't believe me. And again, the place I'm getting the numbers from is literally in game, which can be wrong. ESO can be wrong. I'm open to that idea, and oftentimes there's problems with stuff like that. It's what makes it so hard to do content. But if you get this idea in your head, that you can just ignore facts. And when someone's like, "Hey, where do you get this number from?" Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess could we look? Do we think like, wait, no. Is that it? Can we look here? Is this it? Can we look at like let me hold on. Maybe healer build. Let's see. I don't know. Outcast builds are often known for being like years out of date. So let's just see if like does he recommend Magicka Recovery? Maybe this is where he got it from. I don't know, but he said everybody he checked, everywhere he checked, like it was showing Magicka Recovery, so therefore I must be wrong. And you have to go, this is basically like I looked at some places that I liked, I guess, or that are easy to find or something, and I'm just going off of more people say this than say the other thing. This is what is called groupthink. Groupthink, people individually are known for being pretty smart. People as groups are known for not being very smart and often being very wrong about things. And this is kind of how it can happen. You got to look at facts, you got to look at numbers, you got to look at things objectively. Okay, let's catch up on comments, and then maybe we'll switch focuses now. Let me see here. I'll watch for sure. Okay, well, let me see. Okay, chatted with the doctor. Okay, yeah, we caught that. Okay, can't say I found anything wrong, but I've changed things that I find fit my playstyle better without breaking the build. Okay, I appreciate you thinking about it, Robert, even if you didn't come up with anything. Crafty Pappy says, and sometimes things are better in particular situations and not as much in others. Okay, yeah, exactly. And that's why I find myself sometimes, because sometimes I'm working at the margins. I'm doing this like hard mode stuff, which is not, I generally don't make my guides for people doing the sweatiest content in the game, because I make, what I do is I make other videos that are a little bit more, so like if you look at, can I go to my own, let me see if I can find like playlists here. Oh gosh, they're kind of everywhere. Wait, let's just go to the homepage. It'll be easier. So healer guides. Yeah. So if you look at like this, some of this stuff, you'll find that I'll mention, more of the options that you have in some of these like longer videos, even though the one from like 2022, or if you go to my tank guides, you'll find that in some of these like ultimate, right, it's still only 40 minutes long. I look at this and I'm like, this is only 40 minutes long. I did not cover everything that could be covered here. I know it. And I know that with the healer video too. But in the past, I've done other like longer videos where I explain things maybe in more detail. And it's just because like there's only so much time. But that's what I try to do in the class specific videos. I'm trying to give particular advice, and then in the other videos that are a little bit longer, if I make them too long, nobody watches them. So I'm always trying to make them short as I can. I try to provide more options because there might be something you can tweak or run differently in certain situations. Kelvar says, so do you do your own research, test, and compare, and you get told you're wrong, even though those other creators are probably just repeating what they heard? You're asking me, Kelvar, I think. Yes, that's exactly what I find, to be totally honest with you. So when I go look at a class, so what often happens, and this is, it's a little bit frustrating for me if I'm being totally honest, because when I go to look at a class, for example, and I'm going to make a build, I literally go through everything, because for me, I don't know if this is for everybody, but for me, the place where I can make the most mistakes on a build guide is it's just not know it. You don't know what you don't know, right? So there could be something that I will miss, and or that oftentimes that I've forgotten. That happens all the time, and I'll see it and I'll be like, oh yeah, I knew that once. But I kind of forgotten it. So for me, the hardest part is going through the checklist. And what I'll do is I'll literally go through every morph of every skill, and I'll look at it and I'll go, does this help? And if it doesn't, a lot of times it's very easy to figure out. And I'm just like, no, it doesn't. It's exactly what I've done with you guys when I've walked through the skills for making a build with a DK. That's essentially just a much more toned down. I just go through something much more intense. Earlier today, I was making so I want to compare the races in ESO. And I've done this and I've explained it in some of my like tanking videos. where I explain that, like, I think in this one
Hey
here,
everyone, it's Nightmare.
I just briefly like pop this up, and I'm like, hey guys, here, let me pull this over to the side a little bit. I'm like, hey guys, like, here's the math. um, and like you can look for it, convince yourself. You don't need to be a Nord. You can get to resistance cap. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But I find that, like, since this is inside of another video, a lot of times people will Google what's the best race for a tank, and they want to know. And so I was preparing to do a video on just what is the best race. And to be able to do that, I need to look at, well, how do I compare these things that aren't necessarily readily, very easily comparable? And I put them on a spreadsheet. That, a lot of this stuff I'm pretty bad at making that kind of stuff and making it look pretty. Like, even this, like, took me longer than embarrassingly long to make, probably. Pretty simple, but I just want to make it pretty on screen and what have you. This is just Excel. And I'll go through and I'll like, well, how do I compare really the Nords right here, the rugged passive at 2.6k resistances to everybody else's ability? Well, the good news is that most of the stuff, like having a little bit extra stamina or a little bit extra health, is not something that'll make or break. Really, there's usually one particular line on a racial, passive. Out of the 5, there'll be one of them that is really important. And so for Nords, luckily, it's resistances. Well, how do I show that resistance compared to a red guard's getting stamina back while blocking? How do I compare those two things? Like, so what I was trying to figure out, and I need to do it in a very mathematically precise way, in a very logical and precise way. And I mean, I can tell you guys if you want to know. I'll give away the video that I'm working on if you really want to know. Let me know. Someone's got to say something though, otherwise I'm not going to do it. But I'll go through in a very specific way. Okay, all right. Well, Terrell says spoilers. Crafty says there's a data mine of the new zone going on. I'm sorry. There's a data mine of the new zone. Guess it's going to be in Solstice. Yeah, it also seems like we might actually get a trial too, Crafty, which I was like, what? We're getting a trial? They didn't. It's so weird because they've mentioned it in the past and they didn't mention a trial. And I was like, seriously? They're not going to give us a trial? I don't know if it was up in the air so they didn't want to say anything, or I don't know if they just hate us and they wanted us to think there wasn't going to be a trial, but they didn't say anything. I would love, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing. I would love a new trial. I look forward to the new trial every single year, and it's like I don't get excited about much, but the new trial excites me. Okay, Khajiit's crit damage buff is probably the hardest one to replace with gear. For solo content, yeah, Khajiits are like S tier. So if that's what you mean, I would confine it specifically to, it's either like in an optimized group or not in an optimized group. In an optimized group, it's worth nothing. Out of an optimized group, it's like the best thing you can get. So I actually don't mind that, honestly. I think that would be easier than this Nord passive. This has been tripping me up. Again, trying to figure out a way to explain it. Like, there's so many factors, and if I take 20 minutes to explain all of those factors, then I lose people, right? Like, because then that's only part of the video. So with Nord, it's this resistance, right? Which is amazing, right? To be able to get it. And honestly, it's hard for me too, because like for new tanks, I see new tanks running around not at resistance cap. And when I say new, I mean tanks that are doing veteran trials, and then they get to a really hard-hitting one and they're dying. Whenever they're expected to go off and hang out with that ad over there by themselves, they're dying. And when I look at it, I often find that they're way below resistance, or they're on a hard-hitting boss, and it's like sometimes they die, sometimes they don't. And yes, part of that is heals, but turns out it's like they're not at resistance cap. And so being on a Nord would probably help them out if they weren't. And so like I want to do a video telling how, new tanks, how important it is to get to resistance cap, and here's how to do it. It's not that hard. So like the Nord, like, and again, a lot of people think I have feelings about a lot of this stuff, and it's funny because my wife will tell me that I'm anti-sentimental. Like I don't, like, people, Nightblades. Yeah, I love my Nightblade. Yeah, I love it. I've told you guys that I've been playing a Nightblade since Daggerfall, right? Not many of the classes from those older versions of the game made it into ESO. Nightblade is one of them. I don't care. Like, I don't have an emotional attachment to Nightblades. I just don't. Like, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. So like whatever. Anyways, or Nords or not Nords. Like, I don't have an emotional attachment to any of the like races. Like, I do think Argonian Tales and Khajiit Tales are kind of fun, but I really don't care, guys. Like, my fashion, I just don't care. I just really don't. I don't care about the story. I really just don't. I don't have any emotional attachment to it. I look at this and I'm like, okay, 2600, how do we compare that to something else? And then how do we compare that to the Nord? Well, what people have been saying for years and years is that, like, oh, DKs have the best sustain, right? I covered this recently in my comparative analysis video that I spent weeks and weeks on, and I'm afraid the views are gonna go to zero. But a lot of people watched it, but like, that's not good enough. It needs to be a video that people continue to watch for it to be worth all the time that I spent in it. Kelvar asks, have you gotten pushback on your tank's resistance findings? It runs a bit counter to what Hyper promotes for Nords. Yeah, it does. And that's actually, yeah, and I do get pushback on it. I think mostly the kind of things I get is like, basically, like, how could you disagree with Hyper? Kelvar is usually the things that I get. And again, there's nothing wrong with Nord. Nord is a fine choice. It's just not necessary. And I feel like, and I think this is true, most people just want to play, they care about what their character looks like, and they might want to play a high elf. They might want to play a whatever. Our tank that filled in picked a Khajiit over the weekend for the hard mode Dreadcell Reef, and he was doing great. He was on a Khajiit. He said that given the opportunity, though, he would make a Nord now because he has to move some CP over. I think part of it is people, Kelvar, to your kind of points, is that people are not looking at it objectively, and they're not questioning those presuppositions that they've had for so long to go. And they also will essentially watch one creator, and they will think that, like, if Tank Club gives like other options, or if I give other options, they'll think that those are the only other options. And the thing is that it doesn't, sometimes we can, and oftentimes, like, it's kind of these live streams for me that I'm going to try to do this more often, but it's really hard. I can't go through and break down everything for you guys because it'll take hours and hours, and I don't mind doing it. It's fun. I would love to chat with you guys and do a kind of conversational thing, but if I'm doing a video, I can't do that in a video. No one will watch it. Like, and when they click off of it, YouTube will go like, "Oh, this isn't that good of a video," and it'll stop recommending it to anybody. And then it's like, well, I just spent weeks and weeks of my time preparing for this video, and now, like, no one's watching it, and the views go down to zero because no one's Googling, searching for obscure, how does, tank resist, what are all my jewelry options type thing. Yeah, so Kelvar, I do get that all the time. Z says Nord's ultigen is arguably more important than the resistance passive. Z, historically, it has been very important. It's been it's been necessary on a DK to be able to permanently magma shell. Maybe not necessary, but like, it was literally necessary for me. I don't know if there's something else I could have done, but if you wanted to permanently magma shell to ignore mechanics, you had to be on a Nord. That is no longer true. Probably there are still new situations now that you couldn't permanently magma shell before, but now you can, or something. But with Trample providing major heroism, that's just, the Nord ultigen doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter anymore. Honestly, it falls off the list. Is it there? Is it helpful, or could it be helpful? Yes, but now with major heroism, that gives so much more, and you always can find a skill for that. You could find bar space on that. So I don't think that's true anymore. Z. Crafty Pappy says, just got my tank to 50, going to start working on getting my tank on. Okay, cool. That's awesome, man. And then Robert says, would it be, oh, sorry, I lost my, would it be the trade-off of not running a Nord? Oh, meaning if you run Nord, you can wear a different set versus having to make up for resistances. Robert, we'll get into it just a second. Let me just catch up on the rest of this chat, and we'll talk about that specifically. Robert says, I've already watched it a few times. Okay. This particular video, or what have you watched, man? Something else? Something from Hyper? Or, Chicken says, Crafty going to be ready to run across from Nani in 4 to 6 months. Yeah, I'll probably be dead. Does that count? It absolutely counts, man. Hey, Luna says Nord is just a tiny min-max high-end choice that most of the times won't affect people, and they could choose something else that would make their life tanking easier. Redguard. Yeah, and you know what? So often too, historically, this has come up so often is that I will recommend things that I know for a fact would be better for 99% of players running trials and not running trials. And as we talked about the other day, only like 1% of players even run veteran trials. I think run trials, period, but definitely veteran trials. And as you go into hard modes, it just becomes smaller and smaller. It's like 0.1 or 00 or 0.001. It just get the more difficult content, it just there's only a few people. When you talk about people who are running trifectas, you can count them. It's hundreds of people out of the tens of, or hundreds of thousands that play ESO. So it's a very small group of people. And so I try to give my advice for most people. And so often what has happened is when I tell people like, hey, the best thing for you to run is, something that's going to make blocking easier because you should just hold block and stuff like that as a tank. What people will say is like, oh, this isn't the most optimal advice. And they're basically just jerks, right? But they'll be like, this is garbage. Actually, just to give you an example of this, guys, from something not so personal here, the other day, somebody who has been nice to me, and we have no problems. I was in a different Discord, not my own, in a help channel, and somebody had asked a question. Nobody had offered to help them. I don't typically do this because I don't have the time, but I like to try to do what I can to help, right? I just like to be able to help. So no one had answered. So I chimed in, and they were asking about a new build on the Nightblade, and somebody else chimed in, and they said that because the person had asked about a mag blade, and the response, I'm actually going to look at it. I might paraphrase so that I don't like in case some internet sleuth figures it out. What did they say? They said something extreme in regards to a mag blade. Let me find it. And this is the kind of stuff that gets said all the time about all kinds of stuff. So if I recommend something that'll be good for, most players, but is not the most optimal thing, people will say stuff like this and a lot worse. Magblade is the single worst configuration in the entire game right now. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I'm willing to just accept that as being true. Let's just say, for example, that maybe the Nightblade is a single. The thing is, the Magblade is what does that mean? Does anybody know what the theoretical max on a Magblade is right now? I bet it's like 10K at most, like worse than everybody else. And maybe it's a little bit more than the absolute best class. On a max theoretical parse, maybe that much, which is less than 10%, and also probably doesn't matter to someone just starting out the game. The other part of that is that Magblade is one of, if not the most, survivable solo builds, or just for like the average player in the game. And the reason for that is because you could use Swallow Soul as your spammable, and if you're about to die, you hit Swallow Soul. If you don't have Ring of the Pale Order, it doesn't matter. You can stay alive. So like, there's nuance to everything. And I think this person saying it's the single worst build in the game right now basically made this person decide that they were going to change their build and do something else, and that they had wasted all of their time golding out their guild. Now, golding out their gear. Now, do I think this person was trying to not be helpful? Absolutely not. They seem like a really nice person. And they're offering to help. But when people say things like that, it gives this impression to people like, oh, like Khajiit is the worst choice for a tank. Well, it might be. I'm picking that arbitrarily, guys. It might be. But is it really that bad? No. We're talking like small differences here. And that's really what it comes down to. Okay, now we need to actually get through the math here. So let me catch up on the chat once more, then we'll go through the math. Terrell said, that's the thing. You're not saying it's bad, just not the undisputed best. Yeah. And people just take this to the extreme. I like many other creators. I've seen this with people with Zynode, right? Where they're just like, this is a garbage build. And I'm like, I mean, is it garbage? Like, I watched the whole thing. Do I think it's the best? Maybe not. He's on console too. Like the console has limitations that he can't gather data as easily as the rest of us can. And I've also had some friends that used to run with him. And to test out his builds, sometimes he would have, I don't know if he does this still, but like he'd be like, all right, we got 5 tank builds. Let's figure out which one of them's the best. And they all, like 5 different people on those tank builds, and they go into content and do the same thing and see how well everybody performs. Now, is that scientific? No. Because each person could have their own different personal skill or whatever. But he would go like, okay, well, this one survived the best. That's the one I'm going to do a video on. Is that scientific and the most fact-based? No. Is that a decent way to do it? It's not bad. And he's certainly trying to help people, you know? So like saying that like Zynode has garbage builds or whatever is like, I mean, the problem with doing that too is that it's that tribalism. It's that fanboy nature, right? Because like, oh, well, Zynode gave me a build and it helped me get through some content. And like I like that. And then somebody else is like, Zynode is garbage, right? And you're like, oh, well, you're an asshole. And that's what I know about you. And that's what happens. And like, well, I don't want to listen to you. And also I'm doubling down on Zynode. And like, instead of saying like, hey, I wish Zynode would have done this differently, or, this could be better, right? And then there are also other things that we can say. Like, I think we can all say, without being rude, that Outcast is not where we would send anybody, because most of these builds are years out of date. And a lot of the stuff that they recommend is very bad. I think that most of the in-game community, I would say like 99%, would agree. I'm not saying one of these builds isn't good. I just wouldn't send anybody here because I think that the chances of them finding bad information is pretty high. And there's things like that we can say because we can look at stuff and be like, yeah, this is not a good idea. I have seen a heavy attack Arcanist build. A heavy attack Arcanist build causes me psychological damage because a heavy attack build is made to be easy. And part of the way it's easy is that you can just hold left click and you can do a bunch of heavy attacks and you don't have to be able to press as many buttons as fast. Really good. I've done heavy attack builds. I've played on heavy attack builds in content, in trials, and whatever. Nothing wrong with them. Doing a heavy attack Arcanist when the beam lasts for 4.5 seconds versus a heavy attack lasting for 1.8, so the beam is literally twice as long, means to me that like you should not do a heavy attack Arcanist unless you're going to go up front like, this is a meme. I don't recommend this. It's much better to run the beam, even on a 1-bar build, even on a whatever. I think that's a disservice to people to recommend a heavy attack build. Now, if you're like Weremoogle's making a non-resto staff healer build because it's fun, because it's a meme, sure, go for it. But I wouldn't recommend people to typically do that. And we can have the nuance and say that without vilifying anybody. You know what I mean? Unless, again, there are situations where people, just like in the fitness stuff, there are situations where people will recommend stuff that is dangerous, that is going to hurt people's health, that is going to like mess up their life. Okay, sure. Okay, gaming, not quite as bad, but there are people that will recommend builds that will reduce people's fun and enjoyment of the game and will get them kicked out of groups because the build is kind of garbage and people probably won't take the time to explain to them why it's bad. They'll probably just kick them out because they've got 50k health and they have on a DPS and they're doing hardly any damage, but they were told it's an unkillable build for all content. I think that's bad. I think that creator, if they would have said this is a solo build, that would have been fine. But if they're telling it the build is for all content, I do find issue with that. There was a creator that was working, I guess, with Hack the Minotaur, who was faking parses, right? And to get the numbers, pretend like the numbers were higher than they were. And I think that's bad. And I think that's fine to be like, yeah, no one should ever listen to this person again. Clearly they're willing to cheat to get ahead or whatever. I wouldn't trust those creators if they were associated with that. Unless they came out and said like, hey, I didn't do this. I wasn't a part of that. This was a mistake or something. That's fine. So these are two different things too, like someone genuinely trying to help, but maybe not doing the best. And I've talked about this before is one thing, someone lying, someone doing things that are, there's degrees. Okay, so I really do need to get to these questions. Or the question that we had here. So I'm gonna hop to it for Robert. I'm sorry, Robert, it's taking forever to get there, man. So how does this work out? Well, what I actually did is I said, okay, well, how do we compare this? Man, that's hard. Well, what are some ways that I really like I listed here a bunch of different ways that I thought were all valid, and I point out in the video, I hope I do, I'm pretty sure I did, that like this is not all of the ways that you can get to resistance cap here. There are other ways that I'm not covering. These are the ways I recommend. So Hyper has pointed out that you can change your jewelry to protective. You can change your Mundus to Lady, which I list here, but I also specifically say in the video that I would do this only if you're in medium armor. I would not do this typically because it's not worth it. You don't want to change your Mundus. I don't think it's worth it. There are situations where I've done this, guys, but typically it's not worth it. So I typically don't recommend it. I don't recommend the jewelry, so I didn't list that. And maybe there are other ways. Hyper doesn't recommend the jewelry either. He was just mentioning it at least as far as I know. So looking at this, and I wish I don't have Excel installed on this computer, and I think I need to get it so I can pull up these spreadsheets and walk through it. So how would I compare these? Well, one of the things you can do to make it more than enough is if you run the defending trait on your front bar, that will give you 3,290. So almost 3,300 resistances. That's huge. Another thing here is if your front bar 2-piece bonus is armor, if it gives armor. So I think, Robert, you actually mentioned it to me. Adept Rider is one example. Adept Rider gives almost 1,500 resistances just on your front bar. Now, 1,500 is less than the 2,600, so that doesn't work as a 1-for-1. The defending trait here, that's way more, so that also doesn't work for 1-to-1, but it's fine for a comparison since it's over. So what I was looking at doing, and I haven't made the video yet, guys, so this isn't my final answer, but what I did is I was like, well, okay, what if we just say the defending trait? Because really, you should be spending like 75% at least of your time on your front bar. And you know what? I could even just check that real quick. I could just pop up a log from recently. Like, let me see. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it right now. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up a log from the hard mode Dread Cell Reef that I was tanking on my Necro, and I was really not happy with my performance. And I think there's some things I could also tweak with the build, but we got it down to 25%. Let me see what we got here. Can you see in CMX? Oh, great. I don't know how to see in CMX, or not CMX, in logs. How do I see how long I was on each bar? Does anybody know? Can anybody like remote control me if I pull this over and tell me how to find that? Because I realized I was like, I'll go look, and then I'm like, wait, I don't know how to find that on logs. Well, we could look, but it's probably 75 to 85% of the time. So I think it's fine to just be at resistance cap on your front bar. Now, I don't want to be crazy below it, but as long as I'm close, I'm fine with it. So what I was thinking, one way of looking at this is like, well, if I choose to run defensive, then that more than replaces the Nord trait. Okay. Well, what is everybody else recommending for the traits on your front bar weapons? And I went and looked at people like Hyper. I went and looked at, because Hyper is regarded as oftentimes people tell me they think he's one of the best tank in the game. Not one of. They often tell me, I've heard people say he's the best tank in the game. And then, he's well regarded. He's got like twice the subscribers I have. This is somebody who has a lot of like, I think his builds, his videos are very good. I think they're great. If someone recommended Hyper to somebody, I wouldn't have any complaints. I disagree on a few different things, but like it's not like, hey, I don't recommend people go to Outcast for builds because I think they're gonna steer them in the wrong direction. I would not say that for Hyper. Okay, that's my take. So I went and looked at what Hyper recommended, and basically what I was finding between him and also Tank Club, again, similar feelings and what have you. What I found is that Infused is what they would recommend. Decisive, Infused for various reasons. Decisive for the ulti gen. On the shield, if they're running Sword and Board, often it would be either Sturdy or Divines. Was what was coming up, and I'm combining what several people have recommended. What I would say though is on all of those things, and also just so you guys know, running defensive on a Ice Staff, a two-handed weapon, is the same armor or resistances. They're the same thing as running a defensive one-handed weapon with a shield that is reinforced. Okay, those are the same numbers, just so that we're clear. So it doesn't really matter if we're talking about sword and board or ice staff here. And what we within like a couple hundred, maybe it's exact, but pretty close. So what I found here is that if you're going to run defensive trait on your front bar, you're giving up one piece of divines, uh, maybe one infused front bar weapon or one decisive front bar weapon, um, or maybe a sturdy trait. That's what you're giving up. Okay, so I think that's pretty small. I think that's I think those things are not that big of a deal. Now, could you also change your CP? Yes. Could you also do several other things? All the things I have listed here and more? Yes. That's why it becomes very complicated. But I thought if I just look at what other people who are well respected in the the arena, what they're doing and compare it, that would be a good way of saying, well, you're giving up this from their build to get to resistance cap. And if you tell me that giving up a decisive and a decisive front bar weapon, one-handed, and a one piece of divines, I don't think that's that big of a deal. And the trade-off for that one piece of divines, that one piece of decisive or infused or whatever, is getting 200 stamina back while you're blocking per second. And I think that is far outweighs one piece of divines and one piece of decisive. Because as again, like in the extreme cases, maybe you need that decisive. But again, if you can run trample, I think it more than makes up for all of those things. And so to me, that more than makes up for it. Now, I will point out that if you're on a DK, if you're on any of these classes that get resistances, the math is different. And there's all kinds of different, you're going to have more resistances. And so there's other things you can do. And so again, it becomes incredibly complicated, which is the thing I was struggling with. But to simplify it down to the most basic form, I think you could compare defensive to being a Nord. And what are those two things giving up? And I think that works. Are there situations where not having full resistance on your back bar could be a problem? I think maybe so. So I'm kind of disagreeing with myself, but I'm not sure. I don't think it's as big of a deal, but it could be. I could be wrong about that. So that's why I want to look into this more, think about it more. I don't know that I'll be able to give a concrete answer, but I really think that with all of the other ways you can get to resistance cap, I mean, giving up one piece of divines, do you guys really think that that's for more Magicka because you're running the Atro? Is that really a big deal? If giving up that little bit of ulti gen, is that really going to matter in most of your groups? Are you ulting exactly when you get your ultimate full? That's the question. Because if the answer is no, then that decisive probably isn't doing very much for you in most situations. Yeah. Robert Miller says Redguard equal new meta tank race. Yeah, and you want to hear something kind of messed up, man, is that I think TC Lee was probably recommending Redguard in 3 years ago. Now the math was different then and things weren't necessarily the same. But he could have been right then. I honestly don't remember exactly what the situation was. And we could have been, and this happens to everybody who recommends things that are good for the average player. They get hated on. Tank Club did all the time. There's specific creators who made videos just hating on Tank Club. I won't mention who or why, but they're out there. All right, let me go through, catch up on some of these messages here. Robert Miller says Azrael puts out parses at the beginning of each patch, and he has Magblade in third. Well, there you go. That's funny. That's in reference to someone saying that Magblade is the worst. Crafty Pappy said Sork is beginner friendly as well. Yeah, definitely. Kelvar says my DK tank was Imperial. Have cleared every vet trial on it and looking to do hard modes. So I ran into a bunch of hyper videos, so I changed to Nord as that was the conventional advice from everyone. Kelvar, I've been there as well, man. That sucks. The main thing I try to tell people is don't race change. It's probably not going to be that big of a deal. And you know what? If you're getting into the hard modes, I don't know, maybe there's a reason for it, but it's a CP here or there, which again I don't think is going to make or break anything. Could be the other option. There's a lot of different ways where and it's the other thing that I have, and I had like personal and bad experience with this, is that I've had friends who will I have friends who have been mean to me, like been really terrible to me because of certain things. Like I didn't want to run add-ons because I don't like them. I don't enjoy them, and I don't really like. I don't mind running add-ons that tell me information that I wish the game would tell me, like Ultimate. Like I feel like we should be able to share Ultimate. Hodor's is great. I don't want it to tell me and have a bar up of when I should roll the heavy attack. I don't want to do that because I don't want to play the game that way. I don't want to look at the bar. I want to look at the boss and figure out when his heavy attack is coming. And other things like that where I've had people just be like, incredibly mean to me. A lot of it being incredibly mean to me when I wasn't there, but some of it kind of being a jerk to me while I was in the room. And also with like various like meta options and stuff like that, yeah, there's like people will just make fun of you, just like this person who wasn't probably trying to be a jerk, who's like Magblade is the worst, right? Oftentimes it's the same mentality of like, it's tribalism. My guy is right and always right. It's also like, I know everything, because we want to feel like we know stuff, and but we get this idea in our head, and then we bash people over the head with it. And turns out like the underlying circumstances can change, and then the thing is no longer true. For example, when I was chatting over the weekend with Miles, with Lenny, he said, he explained to me, and this was news to me, right? Like, I thought we needed a Nightblade in group, or a Sork for the passives, and he was like, you actually don't. For their unique passives, it's the minor crit, whether that's spell or weapon crit. And turns out you don't. And the reason for that is because every class now has a source of the minor crit that you would get from and should be running it on a DPS, that you would get from using a potion of a particular kind, whether that's stamina or magicka. And it used to be because they didn't hybridize the potions. And so I thought that you needed one, though, because of that reason, because some people will be using mag potions, some people using stam potions. And he pointed out, no, every class should have an ability, except for Sork. And then he explained why Sork was the exception and why it worked, where you don't need it. And it was like, oh, so you don't actually need a Nightblade or a Sork for the unique class passives. You want the Sork for other reasons. So it's like, oh, I was wrong about that. I got new information. Now, if you took that and then next patch something changes and you're bashing people in the head and like, you're an idiot, you don't need to run a Nightblade for anything. But the underlying circumstances, what abilities DPS are running changes, then your thought process, you're wrong, right? But people will do that, and it's unfortunate. I wish they wouldn't. It's a little bit of kindness, a little bit of humility, and a little bit of realizing that, like, hey, I don't know everything, and even if I'm right about something now, things could change, especially within the game where we have incremental patches updating all the time. Greg says, it feels like Sork is not moving fluid lately. I don't know why. Same with Templar. What do you mean, Greg? Oh, wait, they have another comment here. I've been doing great with your stuff. Oh, well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You have to be able to look at stuff and know what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about DPS with relations to the Sork and Templar, Greg, or tanks, or yeah, tell me more, man. I'm not quite following you. Sorry, it probably made sense whenever you put it in, but I've been talking. So I lost the train a train of thought you're responding to. Crafty Pappy says, since I'm just staying on tank, should I run mostly reinforced? Crafty Pappy, you want to get to resistance cap? Are you on a Nord or not? Probably. So resistances, so your armor traits aren't really that good. There's not really a super compelling reason to run a lot of different things. In certain situations, could having well-fitted for extra roll dodge help? Yes. Could having sturdy for extra block reduction help? Yes. Although a little bit less than that, I recommend just putting an enchant on your jewelry to reduce block cost in that situation. So I don't really recommend that. So I do recommend generally running reinforced, but it is nuanced. I will also note Imperial DK. Cool. So you're also going to get some extra for being a DK, so keep that in mind. I think reinforced is the best thing to do. I think it's the best bang for the buck. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I recommend reinforced. On your gloves and on your belt, it's better to run Nirnhoned. Nirnhoned will get you like an extra 100 like resistances over like what reinforced would, because those pieces don't have very high base armor. Robert Miller says Redguard equals new meta tank race. I think it does, man. And you know what the other thing is? Like, people will say like, oh, Redguard for beginners. I hard mode, Dreadcell Reef, hard mode, less Dreadcell Reef now, but hard mode Kind's Aegis. I've wanted more stamina while blocking in both of those fights. And so it's like in other hard mode situations where I've wanted more stamina and I wish I could get it back while blocking. Now, I'm often on a Necro. So Necros don't have a great way of getting back stamina while blocking. So if you're on a class that does have a great way, maybe that changes things. So if you're on a DK, if you're on a Nightblade, if you're on a Sorcerer, probably you don't need to run a Redguard, because you can hit a button and get back a bunch of stamina. And so that changes things up as well. So a Sorcerer, I would say S tier in that category. A Nightblade, I would say, but beneath the Sork, but also still S tier. And then I would say DK still very high. Everybody else, it gets more difficult. And I say that, again, it's incredibly nuanced. I did an hour and a half video comparing all this stuff. So if you really want it, go check it out there. But on a Warden in that situation, you would be dropping heals on the group potentially, because that's probably the buff you're providing, and that will give you back, is it 250? I think it's 250 of whatever your lowest resource is. And so that also puts it in the same tier as at least as good as a DK, better and worse depending on the exact situation you're in. But it puts it up there with a DK as well. So it's like, a new player, though, won't be doing that. And so, like, it, again, probably still good. So probably those three classes, maybe not the best race for them. But again, even as a new player, you run out of stamina. So it really just depends. I could also, and want to talk more about running Harmony jewelry. I don't typically recommend it. And if you look at the high end, Harmony jewelry is S tier. It is amazing. There's also I won't mention what it is, but there is an interaction that has, I don't think, anything to do with the actual Harmony. There is an interaction that makes Harmony even better than it should be because it's bugged. I'm not going to mention what it is because I don't want to get it nerfed and everybody be pissed off at me. But Harmony works incredibly well. Okay. In an idealized situation at the top tier where you're getting fed synergies and where you're hitting those synergies as well. For new players, no. If you're in a new group, you're not going to be getting the synergies. I've also run into situations where they just forget to use it. And so it's really bad for new players. Now, having more Magicka, would that help? I think it would, which is why I often recommend running reduced cost. But like it's a human situation. Like it's really based on what people are going to do. And I've seen a lot of different things. And so I don't know what one thing to recommend that's best for everybody. Yes, I think that reduced spell cost with infused jewelry is the way to go. But because also with your infused, you could put on a reduced block enchant and it'll work well. And if you're new, infused is good all around. And you can change out your enchants very easily and you don't have to use transmutes to recraft stuff. So I think that infused is the best thing, better than Harmony for new tanks and for most people in most situations. Sure. If there is a situation that if you're on a Necro and you're getting, like you can even make it even better because you can use your Boneyard to provide yourself with your own synergy that you can use. So maybe there's a situation where like it becomes more optimal earlier on in a less optimized group because you are getting synergies, maybe not all the synergies you could get, but you're getting a lot and you can provide your own synergy if you need it. It's complicated. And so like, we try to condense this stuff down, but like it is complicated. All right. Luna says meta would not be the appropriate word for Redguard, in my opinion. I think the argument here is that there's not that meta choice and you could choose something else. Okay. But if by meta we mean easy, then definitely. Yeah. I think meta typically just means like the best choice. And I think what people would say is like, is it the best choice for most people? Yes. Is it the optimal choice, which is also how meta is used? Then no. So yeah, or maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's everything that Luna said is absolutely fair to say. You know, again, like I don't think that there is a way of saying one thing for all situations for everybody. I don't think that's useful. I don't think it's helpful, and I don't think it would be accurate. I think it is nuanced, and so we have to realize that. Um, Imperial DK, I don't want to go over and waste crystals. Yeah, yeah, that's a big part of it. Well, and that's the other thing is like for me, I have all the jewelry. I also recommend like having a piece or two of Swift is always a great idea. And so later on in the game, transmutes don't mean anything. I'm always maxed out. Money gold doesn't mean anything. I always have as much as I need. Not always as much as I want, but certainly as much as I need. Like not all my gear is golded out, but if I need to go golded out, I can. And I say that like I could gold it all now and it wouldn't be a big deal. It's just like annoying. So I haven't done it, so I just do it as I need to. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different things. So like, having all those different sets, having whatever, it's like not a big deal to me. So it's also like at some point it doesn't really matter. Also, leveling a new character is like not a big deal if it ever came down to it. If I was ever like, you know what, it's not Nord, it's not Redguard. Most of my characters are Nords, or because of the reason mentioned earlier, right? I was kind of pressured into it, and I was like, okay, I need to do this, so that's what I did. And it's like at least they won't give me shit about this. Did it matter? Was it helpful? Like probably not. But it is what it is. Chicken says, oh, no, I'm talking to Crafty. Okay. Yeah. Doing dailies gets you tons of crystals for sure. And it's hard when you're starting out because you need to make so much gear. But once you get it, then like when the old gear, like Yolnahkriin, right? Like we don't use Yolnahkriin. And I told everybody to decon it, and people were like, I'm not deconning it yet. Things might change. It's like, no, I think it's safe. I waited like, months after you could have probably deconned it to be like, you should decon it. But you get crystals back. So then you got, you don't really run out. Wait, what's this Harmony secret sauce? It just passively works. You don't need to know anything for it to work, Terrell. If you want to DM me, I could tell you, but yeah. Yeah, sucks restarting. Yeah, it does. It does. Well, and again, when you're starting out, it's so and you're a console transfer or whatever, yeah, it's rough. It's tough. All right. Let me just check and see where we're at here real quick. We've been chatting for a good while. Do you guys have any questions about anything that you wanna talk about, or anything related to what we've been talking about? I don't think we got to everything I wanted to talk about today, but we're quickly running out of time. Yeah, it's funny. Somebody after the last stream where I talked about like there are secrets of in game that we don't tell, because we don't want ZOS to fix the thing that's broken, which they have before, and it's really annoying. Somebody like told me a whole bunch of them. They were like, "Oh yeah, I got some stuff for you," and they asked me not to say anything on stream, so I'm not going to, or say anything. Period. So I'm not going to. I'm not going to share stuff, but I don't even know if I want to share what I just said. Actually, I'm sorry. I might get. I don't want to get myself in trouble with them. But they told me a bunch of stuff, and it was funny. It was a bunch of stuff I hadn't even heard of. But yeah, sometimes there's stuff that, like, there was one point where like Azurblight was broken, and we're all like, yeah, don't say anything, guys. Okay, like nobody said that, but like we're all on the same page. Gonna have to delete the VOD. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, first rule of Fight Club. Yeah, Luna says I don't think anyone should feel bad by having a Nord tank. It's not like you were tricked to something bad. I would still make some of my characters Nord even after understanding it better. Luna, it's just that like I like race changed, and I feel bad that I wasted the crowns. On it, and I feel bad that I like gave into peer pressure basically. But yeah, I mean, it's whatever. Hey Sniper, uh had a rough day with a stomach bug. Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, man. Sorry to hear you're not feeling well. I'm glad you dropped in to say hello though. Hey Adolfo, any sets for Magblade that is OP secret? Nah, stuff like that we talk about. You can use on a Nightblade, you can use Null Arca still, and that's like the main like set that is like Nightblade focused. Adolfo. Luna says, "Yeah, I get that. I'm glad I didn't race change my red guard Sork. I would never do it by any chance. I wish that my Necro was a red guard. That's the main thing. I think it would make. I think I have problems in groups, particularly that have like gone to hell where everybody's dead or whatever. It's hard. I can't sustain without a sword and board permanently. Um, Solo with no heals in hard mode or veteran content. Um, and I wish I could, because if I can necro res everybody, I have literally carried groups through content on my necro. I think probably you guys have seen it here before, where like the entire party was dead, literally, or other things where it's like we wouldn't have cleared had I not been necro resing and had I not stayed alive. And there have also been situations where I have died because I was running a ice staff, because it's a little bit historically it was more optimal, and now there's other things you can do, but historically it was more optimal, but in the middle of a fight you can't change, so like I died because I couldn't heavy attack to get back resources. And part of that is also like, I don't know, maybe you can, but like I'm raid leading and trying to help people that don't know what the hell they're doing. So like I'm holding block a lot to tell, because I'm not looking at the boss. I'm staring and watching what they're doing, and I'm like, hey, so and so, stop casting that skill. It doesn't do anything. Also, go res this person, please. I'm doing a lot of other things than just tanking, and so maybe if I was a tank god, I could do that. But it was like, man, if I was on a red guard, I might not have died in some of those situations, and those groups could have cleared, and so it feels bad that way too. So Terrell says, yeah, that's why we have polymorphs, so we can lie about our races. Big brain move. Yeah. Luna says, but I always go for Nord on my DK. But I would always go for Nord on my DK, for example. Okay. Yeah, and again, that's totally fair. Snipers, they always wear cool shirts. Oh, thanks, man. This is I love this company. This is a backpacking company. I'm trying to think of who they are now. Icebreaker. Icebreaker and Smartwool. This is just a backpacking thing. So I've told you guys, I think, before, that I've lived outside for literal years of my life. I like hiking and being outside. Wool doesn't grow bacteria on it like synthetics do. So like if you have your standard Nike dry fit thing or Under Armour or whatever, and you sweat in it, do you notice how it like smells horrible the next day? Because bacteria just grows on it. It's the shape of the polyester or whatever, like bacteria colonies can just grow on it, and it smells horrible. Wool won't be like that, and you can like wash it in a muddy creek and put it back on if you need, or in a sink in the place you're staying, and dry it out and put it back on, and it won't smell. You might, but the shirt won't. And but that only works if it's 100% wool. And every single company, they start off making 100% wool, and then I don't know if it's cheaper or more profitable, they always add something synthetic into it. This one's old enough that it's 100% wool, but yeah, it's funny because it's always a problem. And it's like, dude, if it's 90% wool, it's still gonna smell like terrible, like death, if if I don't do, if I can't wash it properly or after a day or two. Ranger says, most people do not play the content where the race would even matter. Yeah. And if you do, if in those situations too, Ranger, I still think that like I recommend people play what they want, because that usually matters a lot more to people. They want to play the race they want to. If you don't care, and you're a beginner, or even general, I would just say choose a red guard, and you'll probably never have to race change. And I think that's better for most people. But yeah, for sure, most people it doesn't matter. Crafty said, sucks they changed the Master Architect. It was nasty for Magblade. Okay. It's been a while. So I don't remember Master Architect being BIS for Nightblade, but I might have missed it, or it was before I was into all this stuff. Chicken says, take info you find from new people and go experience and try it for yourself. Helps you learn it, and maybe your experience and outlook will help others, rather than this one person is the Bible. Yeah, that's a good TLDR there, Chicken. Robert says, my DPS DK is an Imperial, trying that Zenkosh build. Oh, okay, cool. Luna says, by the way, I think Sork is one of the classes that works best with Lady Mundus Stone, so it's an extra point for Red Guard. Okay, Cool, cool. Yeah, I've also seen that with Sorks where they'll run like infused, like or just like a mag recovery enchant since they can um, different skills. Sorry, my Google Home thinks I'm talking to it. And then Stan with a plan says, Ed Nihiro, haven't played since DSR came out, and you were leading a pug vet. Okay. Oh God, were you in one of those, Stan? We did like an 8-hour VDSR the first time we cleared, man. Anyway, wanting to get back into the game. Where do I start? Well, it's good to see you, man. Glad you came back. What class and spec are you? And do you mean get back into trials or just get back into the game? Period. A lot of stuff has changed since then. I'm not sure I'll remember what is different, but I could definitely point you in the right direction. Tell me more, and I'll give you more specific advice. Luna says, but I think if my Necro was a red guard, I wouldn't go Lady Mundastone. I would do something else. Yeah, on the Necro, I love. I mean, just in general, I keep my Mundus Stone as the Atro for the magic recovery personally. Um, Nord is good. Dark Elf is good too. Uh, yeah, Dark Elf is like best. I like Dark Elves for DPS builds because they guys tell me if the audio freaks out as I'm tabbing out here. It's been a problem with ESO. I don't know if it's a Discord problem or if it's just an ESO problem more generally. I know it's a oh my god. Oh my god! I just realized this. We over the weekend I changed the name on this character to the Trash Can Arsonist, and I absolutely love it. This is what we're gonna take tonight for our DK. It's also what I healed on. It's also what I DK healed on over the weekend. I remember when Argonian race skill was just swimming speed. Okay. Oh man, a while ago. Crafty says I don't know if it was Biz. Um, but we use it to not go off. Oh, it used to be just when like ulti used, not exactly how much ulti you spent. Oh, yeah, that would be crazy because the Nightblades cast ult at like 70 ult. So if it procced every time you just cast an ultimate, not on how much you spent, yeah, that would be absolutely nuts. You just put it on there and you'd always have it up on the Nightblade. Yeah, that'd be crazy. Yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean, Crafty. I had to like pause and read that again. Guys, I want to show you something interesting because we're talking about like thinking outside the box, looking at things for, looking at things for ourselves, looking at things from a new perspective. And I do apologize. Here in a minute, we will have to end the stream because I need to eat dinner and everything before, and get to spend some family time before the run tonight. We'll be back in 2 hours from right now to do that Lucent Citadel hard mode. I will be running it for the first time. I have not done hard mode. And and I'll also be Zenkoshing it for the most part. But I wanted to pull up one of our logs from this weekend. Give me just a moment as I pull it up on a different screen. And I just wanted to show you something really interesting about the healer here. So I was, again, as I mentioned, guys, you can go look back at this VOD. It looks absolutely wild. Also, just a side note about how to search. So I've started on all of my ESO builds, or I'm sorry, all of my ESO streams where I'm playing a particular class and spec. I have been putting that afterwards. So if you go to my channel and you search, I can actually just show you guys real quick. I think can I? Maybe. Hold on. It's a different tab. Where were we at? Here we go. It should. I want to somewhat test this real quick. So let's say we say Dragon Knight. See what we get here. Okay, cool. Yeah, pops up. Here it is. So Dragon Knight, Zenkosh, POV. And then Dragon Knight Healer POV. Right. So this one's for tonight. This one's from the past. And there's not many. But for other ones that I played more, I've only just started doing this, so there'll be more. But this is how you can see VODs of me playing a particular class and a particular spec if you want to see what it looks like and what I look like doing it. And I try to at the beginning, if something's going right or wrong, we'll try to say something. So this first boss fight we wiped several times and it was absolutely wild. People were dying. It was a res prog. It was absolutely nuts. Probably not my best work, I will say. Okay, but it was absolutely wild. Go check it out. It's funny. I mean, it was not great. It's a training group. That's what it's all about. We're all learning. But in there, I noticed something pretty interesting. So let's just go to healing, and I'm on the, so me and then, oh, that's funny. So this is like heals that are actually being done here. And normally you look at overhealing. Overhealing, because most healing is overhealing. And what'll happen is like the game, for whatever reason, prioritizes one heal, and maybe it's a class heal from somebody else over to actually heal the person, but you also had hots on them, and it just shows incorrect numbers. So you want to look at overhealing most of the time to see like what are the raw heals per second. So I can see mine here, but one thing that is interesting that I wouldn't look for overhealing for, let me go back, is if I click on myself, cauterize. Cauterize actually healing. So this is healing that actually healed someone when they were low health. Cauterize is at the top of this list. And I found that fascinating because the cool thing about Cauterize is that every 3 seconds, it sends out 3 balls to heal 3 people around you in a huge area. Basically, everybody in the trial, unless they're really far apart. It's like 28 meters. It's like one of the like. It's a huge area. 28 meters in any direction is like massive. Okay, so 28 meters, and it smart heals. So this Cauterize was picking the people that actually were low health and needed heals, and it sent them a burst heal. I wonder how many people's lives this saved, because I actually think it could be quite a bit. Typically, you look at overhealing because again, you're casting a bunch of overheals. But since the group was spread out and it was completely chaotic, I think this Cauterize probably and you don't have a skill like this on most classes. Is this a reason that is it meta? DK is meta healer now? No, but it's really interesting, and it actually did an incredible job, and I imagine probably saved a lot of people from dying, and probably made our clear easier. So just a cool thing and something I thought was interesting. Doesn't mean this is the new meta healer, Ray spec or anything else or whatever, but I thought it was interesting, and also I knew everything about the skill going in there in that crazy situation with a training group that's spread out and people are dying and everything's going to hell. I wouldn't have known how good this was unless I had used it in that situation. And then I realized, wow, this is actually really good. Actual heals that people really needed when they needed it, whether they're in group or not, Cauterize was the highest skill for me. Then Illustrious, then Echoing, then Combat Prayer. And if we look at the other healer, that's not right. That's not the other healer. That's the other tank. If we look at the other healer, she has something very similar to what I had, but she doesn't have that heal. So it's Illustrious Healing, Echoing Vigor. I think there's some Healing Ward. I think it was giving some love to the tank there, and then Combat Prayer. So a little bit different there. So just really interesting, and I wanted to share that. Since it was in the thumbnail today, I just wanted to share it. I thought it was cool. Okay, what else we got here? Let me catch up. Cool. Crafty says that's how it was when MA first came out. Okay. So it was when it first came out. I was playing the game when it first came out, and I was maining a Nightblade, Crafty. I probably just didn't know. That's really interesting. Sniper Wolf says, what is the best character you prefer, Knight? What is your most used and favorite? Sniper, my most used has changed a little bit because I when I'm making builds and everything, I actively go out and try to play other things. And so I get experience. So I learn things like that ability, like Cauterize, actually worked quite well. But I would say that my favorite is the Necro tank. And the reason for that is because I love trials the most, and I can help carry people through content with the Necro Res. So right now and for the longest time, it has been the Necro tank. You could probably do the same thing with a Templar, to be totally honest, with just reducing your res time, but it's the same thing. Luna says Spirit Minnow is probably insane good because of the same reason. Yeah, especially because it's awesome for ulti gen on the Necro, and it's one of the strongest smart heals in the game right now. Yeah, for that smart healing ability, absolutely. Robert Miller says, how does that compare with the other? Oh, okay, cool. Other healer in the group, we already showed. Okay, so it is better. And I didn't look at the raw heals on it, but I guess it popped up on screen, so you can look, I guess, if you want to see. Just go back a little bit after the stream is done. Luna says, but people still sleep on it. I guess no one understands well about Necro healers. Yeah, Necro healers also have like the most class heals that are actually useful that I know of. Maybe there's something else, but I think Necros have they have 3 class heals that are actually legit good. And they have the best ulti gen in the game. So Kelvar says, so DK healers are the new meta for prog groups. Okay. Yeah, right. He's joking, guys. There is a situation where they can work really well. But yeah, people are like, oh, DK healers aren't good. And it's like, yeah, that's not true. I will say I was trying to use the small AoE heal in there, and it was complete garbage. I shouldn't have had it on my bar. Couldn't keep it on anybody to do anything, but that's just situational that's going to happen. Cool. Don't tell Zoss, they will fix Cauterize. It's not broken, man. It's only 3 people. It's something, honestly, I wouldn't even have thought would be good for a trial, to be totally honest with you. But turns out, I mean, well, I knew, and I had said before when we did because we made that DK healer on stream last week. And it's one of the things like, yeah, this is probably just I would only use for 4-mans or in those rare situations where your party's really spread out. I didn't expect it to be a trial, and in that situation, I was thinking like Vass would be a good one, or maybe something else. I didn't expect it to be in a trial like that, but yeah, absolutely was. Getting those heals to people exactly when they needed it. When people I talk to about have impressions that Necro is one of the lowest heals per second classes in the game, I'm not enough of a healer to argue, but I definitely doubt on that. Yeah, it can't possibly be. Maybe raw heals per second, but for in general for all the buffs, but you have so many more class heals that it's got to be better. Also, heals per second usually don't matter. But if you were just going pure heals per second, the fact that you could throw in multiple skills that would heal, I can't imagine. Could be wrong, but I can't imagine that would be true. Okay, what do we got here? Do we have a build? Okay, this guy has... Is this like an Endless Archive build? What do we got on our bar here? Why do we have Hardened Armor? I don't know why we have these skills in this bar. Is this a DPS? This looks like... This looks like a mag. Yeah, this looks like a mag DK, right? Looks like it. We're going to equip this build. It looks pretty good. Anybody know if I should swap out any of these skills? Let me show you something else, guys. Actually, I'll pull up the armory because it had both. I don't know how old this build is. It looks pretty good to me. It could be off on a few things. I will tell you, people get this in their head that they're like, oh, this is at least a patch old. Probably several patches old. Maybe 4 patches old. I don't even know. It could very likely be 3 or 4 patches old for sure. Whenever I did my last DK video, I don't know, could be very old. If there's stuff here that is wrong, it's going to be a few theoretical max DPS wrong. That's all it is. It's not going to be the end of the world. Okay, in most situations, and then you can just check to see hey, does this look right? Is there anything I need to update here? Don't stress it, guys. So many people think that oh, if this is old. Now, if you're running hyper-specific sets, then maybe that'll change. But if you're running Zenkosh, it doesn't ever change, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's really cool. And then, that's also why I caution people from running the current best set. If it's best by 1,000 or 2,000 DPS, it's likely to change in the next patch. And it's do you really want to go re-gold out most your gear? If you're pushing hard modes, maybe you should. Maybe your group wants you to, and maybe that's expected. If you're not doing hard modes, it definitely doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's not that big of a deal. Don't stress it that much. And if somebody tells you, they're often want to, that oh, that's, this, they nerfed the hell out of, pick a skill. We'll say Barb Trap. It's not true. I'm just picking an example. Oh, they nerfed that out of Barb Trap is garbage now. They're probably exaggerating. It's probably still fine, right? They didn't make it do 0 damage when it did damage before. Robert says Necro and Warden would be tops for class skills. I love that you get to keep your class favorite in a role. Yeah, or your class favor in a role. Yeah, flavor. Jeez, I can't speak or read. Yeah, Robert, I will say, man, it pisses me off every week when I look at the logs for our DSR hard mode group, and your flowers heal for 16k per second on average in any fight that we're in. I'm not going to lie, it pisses me off because your heals are always above mine, and I'm like, man, if he didn't have that one friggin' skill, we'd be equal. But he does, and so he always out heals me. Uh, I'm not really mad, but also kind of mad. Sniper says, yeah, healers are fun if you know the timing, when to heal and when to take practice. Yeah. Hi, what is the best combat metrics mod? I don't mod combat metrics. I just use it. Combat metrics is amazing. I'm not sure. CMX is amazing. Morocco Gaming. Do you wanna say something else or clarify for me, man? I'm not sure what you're asking. Combat metrics is amazing though. Alternative? I wouldn't use an alternative. I would use combat metrics. Robert says no stagger spam. That was my stam build, Robert. So on the stam build, it uses whatever the skill is. So this was like a parse setup on a mag DK. Yeah. But I need to figure out where to work it in as a semi-spammable on here to still keep it up though, even on the mag DK. But I just haven't done that on this build yet. Yeah. Also, welcome in. Yeah. Thanks, Sniper. I appreciate that, man. Welcoming people in. Does Zenkosh normally stagger? It does not, but it can. It does not usually because it's hard and because people don't want to. And then Mel says, "Yeah, flower love for sure. Gotta love the flowers." It's great if you're on the if you're the one playing the class, like then you're golden. If you're not, and it's out healing you, then you're oh man. All right, guys. Well, where was I think I needed to pull up one of these things over here. Probably not that. Is this the right one? Maybe. No, that's not it either. I got too many tabs. There we go. Pull that up. Cool. Well, guys, we're past the 2-hour mark. I need to get this character set up and need to eat dinner and have a little family time. We'll be back in less than 2 hours. I'll be doing that Lucent Citadel hard mode. I've never done it before. I'm going to be hyper focused, probably won't be chatting, but I appreciate everybody for dropping it in. Guys, if you like the stream, if you like the videos, don't forget to leave a like. If you really like them, don't forget to become a channel member. I'd love to have you. You can also donate on Ko-fi or sub on Twitch. Love to have you guys. I really appreciate the love whenever you guys can do that. No pressure for anybody, of course. Guys, let me know what kind of, conversations you want to have in the future. Today was really spur of the moment. I had nothing really planned. Well, I had some stuff planned, but I just didn't want to do it yet. I wasn't feeling it, and I kind of wanted to talk about some of this stuff because it came up recently. But yeah, let me know if there's how to set up your character, like I'm, how to set this character up for tonight. Like I guess I could actually do that now if you guys really wanted to know. But stuff like that. Drop in some suggestions. I got a note in my phone to kind of put a list of all the things that we could talk about, and that'll give me some good ideas for the future. We will continue doing the build videos where we just walk through and talk about how to do a build and everything else. So yeah, what else we got here? Kelvar says, so healing in ESO is about buffs and group support, but I wonder how many healers look at the heals per second output of the other healers. I will plead the fifth on that. Yeah, no, we do it. We do it all the time, man. It's valid. It's just like at some point you're like, do I need more heals? Right. So like what I've been thinking about actually, and we could talk about this more another time, but I'm on a Nightblade. Robert is on a Warden, and the group is not dotting out. No one is dotting out in the group. One of the things I've been thinking about is like, you know what? That tank over there could use some love. Could I swap out a skill so that would cause my overall healing to go down, but that I could give more love to the main tank? And I think the answer is yes. And I think I want to try to do that before next week, and also try out some other stuff. But yeah, guys, have a great evening. We'll see you in a few hours. If you're here, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and appreciate you guys all for tuning in and watching, guys. Remember, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to don't be fanboys. You can give everybody love. Go watch other creators, see what they have to say, figure out what works for you, and yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate everybody for dropping in.